So I'd like to thank the University Heights Association and to the candidates to be willing to participate in this candidate forum. The League welcomes opportunities to work with local organizations to provide voters with this opportunity to hear from their candidates. My name is Sheila Toll. I am a proud member of the League of Women Voters, and I'm your moderator for this evening. This is a forum for the San Diego City Council District 3. For those of you keeping track, Election Day is 2 months from now, exactly, and you will be, if you're registered to vote in the county, you will be getting your ballot in the mail approximately 1 month from now. We would like to thank the candidates, Colleen Cusack and Stephen Whitburn, for attending. Most importantly, we'd like to thank you for coming and for becoming an informed voter. So the League is nonpartisan. We neither support nor oppose candidates or political parties, but we are always working on vital issues of concern to members, our members and the public. For clarity, I do not live in San Diego District 3, so I'm impartial regarding this forum. The forum is an opportunity for you to ask questions you care about most to the candidates. This is not a debate between candidates. Okay? We will be using the League of Women Voters format for this. As part of our mission to educate voters, the League moderates candidate forums using this forum that is fair and impartial. The candidates have agreed to this format in advance. So a little bit how this is going to work. The candidates will have 2 minutes for an opening statement and 2 minutes for a closing statement, and in between that, the opening and closing, they'll have 1 minute to respond to each of the questions. The order of the candidates has been determined randomly. In order to keep us on track, our League member Wendy Young will be the timekeeper. She'll help the candidates by holding up paddles to the agreed upon intervals of time. When time has run out, there will be a stop sign, and you guys will need to wrap it up. We've done this 3 times before, so everybody here is a pro. Our League pages are Kathleen Grove, Holly Merton, and Ann Noel. They're passing out index cards so that you can write your questions. 1 question per card. If you need a card, just raise your hand and we'll get them to you. Okay? If you ask a question that is specific to a candidate, those are held to the end. Given the number of cards I've got, they won't get asked. Okay? If you have a question on how to write your question, if you're concerned on that, they can help you do that. The cards are then given to our question screeners, Donna Bartlett-May, Carol Durham, and Paul Ferris. Okay, they organize them into like groups, hand them to me, and then I will go through and ask them. Okay, in addition to asking excellent questions, you have some responsibilities to making this forum successful. First of all, with the exception of the tech guy, hold all your applause until the forum is finished. Okay? This allows us to ask more questions, keep things moving. The candidate forum is designed to provide a nonpartisan setting for undecided voters to hear all positions. Any demonstrations of support, such as clapping, or non-support, such as booing to the candidates or their positions, is out of order. Okay? You'll get the look. I'll pull the whole mom thing. You get the look, you get the talk, and then we send you to your room. Okay? So let's not do that because we want to kind of keep this thing moving. Okay? So we are ready to begin. Our first person who will be doing opening statement is candidate Cusack. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you so much for hosting this University Heights Community Association. Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters. This is an honor to be in this, to be hosted by your group. It brings a different level of civility. Thank you. And Thank you to Alice Burney for hosting this. I am happy to be on campus again. I spent over a year here coaching kids after school once a week in chess. And so this is I've lived in San Diego now for 34 years. I moved out here to go to law school and made it my home, and then convinced the rest of my family to come out as well. After I graduated from law school, I set to helping San Diegans with my law degree. I fought to get the red light camera photo enforcement system shut down. And then I set up a clinic, was helping law students and homeless individuals. I really want to represent this city to fix a lot of what's broken, to make the city have the potential that it can have to be great. My campaign slogan is protect, house, educate. I want to protect people. I heard a lot of examples today about how you don't feel safe, and I want to address those. I want to house people. We have a serious housing and homelessness issue that's not been adequately addressed. And I want to educate people. If you knew the facts I knew, you'd be as outraged as I am, and I want to share those with you. And I want you to educate me as well. There's been a lack of responsiveness with our government and our residents, and I want to change that. Thank you for having me, and I really look forward to answering your questions. And I don't think I'm going to be able to keep the jacket on all night.
No.
Sorry.
Candidate Whitburn.
Thank you very much, Sheila. It is great to see everybody here tonight. Thank you for taking the time to come out and participate in this. Thank you for submitting the questions that we'll be talking about during the course of this evening. If anybody submitted a question and it doesn't get asked this evening, I'll be happy to stick around and answer your question individually. That's what I'm here to do. It is a real honor to serve as your council member. It has been for the past 4 years. I hope to have your support for my re-election. The good news for voters is that there is a very clear contrast between the candidates, between my opponent and me, particularly around homelessness. I championed our new safe sleeping sites. They help people off the streets and into a safer and healthier place. I also successfully introduced an ordinance that prohibits encampments on public property when there is a shelter bed available. I don't think it's safe or healthy for people to be living in encampments, and it's not good for our neighborhoods either. My opponent has said publicly that she opposes the ordinance, in fact says that's why she is running and wants to repeal that ordinance. If the ordinance were to be repealed, I think that it would impact University Heights perhaps as much as any other neighborhood. I worry about the explosion of homelessness that you would see in the canyons. It's been a problem already. I worry about what you would see in Trolley Barn Park. I really think that we need to continue to move in the direction of helping people get out of encampments into safer and healthier places and protecting our neighborhoods from those challenges. We have seen a 9.5% decrease in encampments citywide in the past year, and we've got a lot more work to do, but I think we need to keep moving in that direction. I don't want to see us go backwards. Hope to earn your support. Look forward to your questions tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our first question. What is your view and vision for the new Uptown Community Planning Group, and what steps will you take to ensure small neighborhoods are heard? So the first person answering this is candidate Whitburn.
Thank you very much for the question. One of the things that I am most looking forward to about the new planning group is the fact that every neighborhood in Uptown will have 2 seats on that advisory body. A seat for a homeowner and a seat for a renter. And by doing that, it is guaranteed that University Heights will always have a say in the advice that comes from the planning group and goes to the city council. I think that our community planning groups play a very important role. I know that when I am looking at things coming before the city council, I routinely look to see how the Uptown Community Planning Group weighed in on something. I used to serve on a planning group. I was in North Park at the time. I was the vice chair of the North Park Planning Group. So I deeply respect our planning groups. Really look forward to the input and look forward to the input from the University Heights representatives on the planning group.
Candidate Cusack.
So the whole process of taking one planning group and disempowering it and empowering another planning group has been riddled with controversy from the beginning. And it's not been very secret as to the motivations of our mayor. And the way it's been gone about is certainly there's the appearance of impropriety, and then there's actual improprieties that have been alleged. So I think for there to be confidence in this group at the outset that there's been challenges to the election process, and I think that election needs to be revisited as a result of those challenges.
Okay. Next question. The state of California has approved 3 San Diego historic districts this year, with heritage groups actively pursuing dozens more. Many of them are in District 3. What will the impact be to our communities if the majority of District 3 falls within a historic district? And the first person answering is candidate Cusack.
San Diego has, people go to visit places because of the history and because of the beauty, and San Diego has both. As a educator, I'm very much a proponent of science, very much a proponent of history. The Secretary of Interior guidelines for historical preservation are smart and scholarly. They're not just about freezing something in time, but about incorporating the past with present in a living and dynamic way. So I support the efforts of the Historical Society to preserve our history. I know there's a process involved, and that can be frustrating when we have a crisis for housing and we need to get that housing. I don't think the need for housing and historical preservation are at odds. We can house our homeless and preserve our history at the same time.
Candidate Whitburn.
Thank you. I don't see any likelihood that a majority of District 3 would be classified into a historic district. There are clearly historic features within District 3 that we all agree should be designated historic. A number of them are, and we want to preserve them for posterity. But that is not a majority of the property in District 3. But where we do have genuinely historic properties, I have supported historic preservation on the City Council. I have also been very watchful for opportunities to weaponize historic preservation to prevent housing. So there has to be a balance, and I think that as these historic districts are proposed, we'll have to take a look at the merits of them. I think some of them are going to be worth declaring, others may not be.
Okay, the next question. Do you believe it's important for San Diego to meet our regional housing need allocation target to permit 82,000 more homes by 2029? And if so, what reform would you like to see implemented so that we can confidently build more to meet our target? First person answering would be candidate Whitburn.
Well, I do think that we need to do everything we can to meet that target. One of the things that really breaks my heart is, hearing from folks who, have raised their kids in San Diego and find that their kids can no longer afford to stay in the city that they grew up in. We have a lot of people who are joining the workforce and they can't afford to stay in San Diego. We lose a lot of brain power. We lose a lot of the people who grew up here due to the housing costs. So I have been a proponent of adding more housing where that makes sense. I think downtown is a perfect example of where we can add a significant amount of housing. And we're doing that. There are well over 1,000 units of housing under construction downtown right now. Many of them deed-restricted affordable housing. That's a place where you can build up, where people expect housing, and where we can really accommodate a good chunk of the need.
So the regional housing needs assessment and the housing element is an 8-year plan, and it runs us from 2021 to 2029. The city said these are the units that we can build in this amount of time, and this is why, and this is how we can build those units in this amount of time. So they represented that, and I want to hold them to their promise, because we need those units and more. So every year under the housing assessment needs, we're to build 13,500 units, and we're only clearing about 6,000 each year. So we're nowhere close to making our goal. In terms of the market rate units that we're producing, we are on target for the market rates. In terms of the affordable units we're producing, we're at 1 to 2%. So, and every new project that comes out is heavy on the market rate, not so much on the affordable. So we really need to concentrate on how are we going to get these affordables out. They can't just be a fraction of the market. We have to make a conscious decision that we're going to make these goals. The housing element sets forth how we're going to do that. We already have that in there. Modular units, build on church and every property. We haven't explored a lot of our options that we should. Thank you.
Okay, the next question. What is your position on the current state of short-term rentals in City Council District 3? Do you view the current system as working? What is your view on the effects of short-term rentals on housing costs and availability? And starting this one is candidate Cusack.
So this is a way we're very different, my opponent and I. I believe that the short-term vacation rental are impacting our community, that there was an ordinance set up in order to minimize that impact, and that ordinance isn't effective, nor is it being enforced. And the short-term rentals are both restricting the rentals and the units that could be purchased, and they are increasing housing prices. This last week, I went in at 50% of our district are corporate STVRs, corporate owned. And I went and saw 2 of those, one block from Trolley Barn Park. There are 14 units, 4 in one building, 10 in another, all corporate owned, partnership owned. My opponent just came from a fundraiser that where short-term vacation rentals were raising money to support his candidacy. The last chance he had to amend the ordinance, the city took no action on. They think that the ordinance is fine. We have 9,600 units, and if only 10% were taken offline, that would have a significant impact and open up the housing stock. Thank you.
Okay, candidate Whitburn.
Well, the current ordinance was a compromise. Prior to the ordinance being passed in 2021, short-term rentals were completely unregulated. And my office was getting all kinds of phone calls and complaints about loud parties and other problems associated with short-term rentals. The compromise was hammered out, and as a result of that compromise, there, number one, have been fewer licenses issued than expected. In fact, not all of the available licenses have been claimed, and that includes here in District 3. But the complaints have dropped considerably because it is a much more regulated market. During the discussions, I heard from a lot of District 3 residents who have a short-term rental that they use to support their retirement income, that they use to support their kids through college. And I think people should be able to do that as long as they are following the rules. And we've hired more code compliance officers specifically to make sure that the rules are enforced. And the fact that we get almost no complaints at all at City Hall right now suggests that those rules are being enforced.
Okay, the next question. Do you think the city needs to increase the sales tax, basically Measure E? And how can the city improve its financial management and transparency? And we'll start with candidate Whitburn.
So the city of San Diego right now has a 7.75% sales tax. It is lower than the surrounding jurisdictions. If you go to National City, you'll pay more in sales tax. If you go into Chula Vista, you'll pay more. If you go up into Del Mar, you'll pay more. So when we go and buy something in those other jurisdictions, we're paying more to support their cities than those folks when they come to San Diego are doing to support our city. If we were to increase the sales tax by 1 penny, which would just bring it up to the average of what other jurisdictions here in San Diego County are doing. If we brought it up to that average by increasing it by 1 penny, that would bring in $400 million a year that we could use for programs, for services, for making sure that our streets are paved, our infrastructure is solid, our street lights are replaced. I mean, all the things that we struggle with right now, we'd be able to make a big dent in much faster if we had those resources.
We would have all of those resources right now if it weren't for Ash Street. $32,000 a day we pay for a building we can't enter. $233 million. And we got a mayor who did this for personal grift and a council that backed him up and didn't protect us, protected the mayor. So when you're talking about a deficit, anything less than $233 million is Todd's tax for Ash Street. Now the other way we can be transparent, there was $155 million that the mayor authorized without going through city council, and city council should be outraged about that. City council should have come in between sessions and held hearings about why they were cut out of the process, why the checks and balances were circumvented, and they should be holding rehearings about those funds right now. So the transparency is that they're not going through the regular system and our council is not holding them accountable.
Okay, the next question. Traffic in University Heights and North Park is already bad. How will more development impact the existing problems? I'm going to start with candidate Cusack.
It's already impacted it, and that's because we've been handing to developers on a silver platter here, just take it all and we'll figure it out later. You know, we'll just let the residents figure it out after you do what you want. So we need stuff, and if we're gonna let the developers not have include parking, then the city has to provide parking structures, and that has to be funded and accounted for. So we have the Uptown plan doesn't allow for parks, doesn't allow for parking, and that's going to be a serious consideration. We don't have the transit in place up and working to support the housing that's coming in on the transit lines. So those two have to work together. We need to develop our transit more. We need 24-hour transit. We need transit through the night. We need dedicated bus lanes that don't have cars in them, and we need to speed up the times and increase the ridership.
Candidate Whitburn.
Well, one of the things that we certainly need to continue doing is implementing traffic calming measures. That is something that has been an issue in University Heights in particular. We heard about that a little bit earlier today, and we've been successful in adding stop signs and speed bumps and some of those things where it's been a particular challenge, and we'll continue to do that. In terms of overall traffic, we do need to be adding more housing so that the people who live here can afford to be here, and so that people aren't falling into homelessness. The greatest number of people falling into homelessness right now are seniors who retired on an income and their rents have gone up, and they can't afford to pay those rents anymore. And I think that as we add more income-restricted affordable housing, my opponent was wrong earlier, downtown 20% of the housing is income-restricted affordable. And that's exactly what we need to be doing.
Okay, How can San Diego improve its stormwater system? Will further taxes be required? We'll start with candidate Whitmer.
Well, I mean, more taxes would be required than we currently have at the moment in order to address our stormwater problems in any kind of an efficient way. Even if we don't pass the sales tax or any other tax measures, we'll continue to work at it and make improvements. But if we want to really tackle the problem aggressively, which is what we need to do, so that we're not seeing the kinds of situations that we saw in January, we do need more revenue. And so the sales tax would move the ball forward significantly. Would we need more tax revenue beyond that? I'm not advocating for that. I do think that if we get the 1 cent sales tax through, that would help us significantly with a variety of infrastructure needs, street paving, street lights, public safety, all the things that a neighborhood relies upon and expects the city to provide. We'd be able to do a better job if we had that revenue, and certainly improving our stormwater system is one of those.
Candidate Cusack.
Again, it's Ash Street. So when they needed to pay the bill for Ash Street, where did they take the money out? Over 150 million was taken out of the capital improvements project. And they haven't been forthcoming with just how many projects that has impacted. But the stormwater cleaning was one of them. And so when people would submit a Get It Done report in District 4 to have their stormwaters cleaned, those would get closed out with no response. Other districts were seeing their storm drains cleaned out. So this is also an equity issue. And 1,000 people have lost their homes and are now homeless as a result of this. We've not had any accountability from the city. The county has paid money towards these victims, not the city. So this was totally mismanagement. Had it not been for that money taken out of the capital improvements, those fixes would have been made in time for it to have mattered. And that's why we can't have nice things in San Diego, is because of the fraud and corruption at Ash Street.
Okay, the next question. What are your ideas to tackle the growing number of homeless on our streets, neighborhoods, and canyons? And we'll start with candidate Cusack.
In 2 minutes. Okay, so we need safe, sane, and voluntary options for people who are waiting for housing options that don't exist for them to materialize. People wait an average of 10 years. That's an average. Some are waiting the extreme 18 years, while others maybe only be waiting 2 years. The Safe Camp is anything but safe. The United Nations Special Rapporteur came out and visited, found all kinds of violations there. My council member will not meet with that person to talk to them about that. Has made no interest to changing that. We have only, that facility is maxed out, 600, even though it holds 1,000 and we're paying for 1,000, 600 with a waiting list of 300, and they're not moving that waiting list in. The shelters are maxed out. 80% of the folks that apply for a shelter every day are turned away. And the safe lots are full with the waiting list. We are not providing things for folks, and then we are yelling at them for being in other places when they have no other option. The ordinance that he brags about isn't being enforced. So if it left in the books tomorrow, you wouldn't notice it in this community.
I hope you notice that there was not one word in that answer about what my opponent would actually do to address homelessness. We're not going to solve homelessness with a chronic naysayer on the city council. We're going to address homelessness by putting forward real proposals, real action, like I have done on the city council, including the safe sleeping sites, which have gotten over 1,000 people off the streets and into safer and healthier places, and with the encampment ordinance that I got through the city council by one vote, mind you, that has reduced the number of encampments citywide, including here in District 3, by 9.5%. We have a lot more to do. But you will recall, it wasn't that long ago when we were seeing more and more and more and more encampments. We have turned the corner. We are seeing a reduction in the number of encampments. We need to continue that work. What we don't need, She called it voluntary options. Seriously? Do you want voluntary? You want to make it a choice if people camp in Trolley Barn Park or in the canyons or in the slopes back there? I don't think you do either.
Okay, the next question. With the projected growth ahead, what are some ways we can get more cars out of uptown and influence more car-less residents to call this their home? And we'll start with candidate Whitburn.
Well, I'm delighted to answer that question. I currently serve as the chair of MTS, the Metropolitan Transit System, which is our bus and trolley system. And what we need to do is make public transit more convenient, faster, and something that people want to take. We're never going to force people out of their cars and force them to take public transit. That doesn't work. The only way you're going to get more people to take public transit is if you make it safe, attractive, convenient, efficient, so that people realize they can get from where they are to where they need to go in about the same time, get there safely, get there comfortably, maybe get some work done on the way, and not be contributing to the traffic problems and everything else. We are making real progress. We are seeing ridership increase on our buses and trolleys. We are adding service, we're adding frequency, and you'll see more of that here. And I am optimistic about the future of public transit in this city. We're approaching it the right way now.
Candidate Cusack.
We're not going to get people to bicycle here with the bicycle lanes that we have because they're not connected. There's no, everybody that's riding right now are bicycle adventurists. They're taking their lives into their hands because while we may have a few short protected areas, there's a lot of unconnected areas. And what the city's done has been very haphazard, and it hasn't listened to residences about where these get placed, and it's pitted car drivers against bike riders. And that shouldn't be. We all want to be safe. We all want to get to where we're going. I appreciate the bicyclists because they are freeing up space for the and lowering congestion. MTS ridership is lower than it's been in years.
Oh, it's not.
We still haven't reached the level of ridership that we had before the pandemic, before he took office. We have bus lanes that aren't fully realized. The December Nights event, that could be a showcase for public transportation. The Pandas right now could be a showcase for public transportation, but it's a nightmare for public transportation. Thank you.
Okay. With the recent animal injuries at the San Diego Rodeo and the LA City's proposal to ban specific rodeo practices, do you support or oppose a similar ban in San Diego? Please share your views and reasons that influenced your opinion. We'll start with candidate Cusack.
Hell no on the rodeo. We do not need to make money by hurting animals, and that's not a sport, and that's not entertainment, and we don't, as a city, I can't take pride in a city that would back something like that. What do we stand for if we're not protecting the vulnerable, and there's nothing more vulnerable than animals who can't decide these things for themselves? So we must be the better adult in the room and do the right thing. It's senseless and it's all for money.
We have to take steps to ensure that we don't have inhumane treatment of animals. I think everybody can agree that there should be no animal abuse. And I think that many of the things that Los Angeles is looking at, certain practices to prohibit, are things that we can explore here in the city of San Diego. Councilmember Lee has expressed interest in bringing forward a proposal. We'll have to see what it looks like. I have not seen the proposal. He has not put forward a proposal. We'll have to see exactly what he proposes, and we'll have to evaluate that. But I will tell you that there are communities, many in the indigenous community, many in the Latino community, who have expressed real concerns about not being able to practice some of the traditional things that they have done and ceremonies. I respect those cultures, and if we could respect those cultures and protect animals at the same time, then I'm open to that as well.
Okay. how do you propose to get unsheltered to beds? Are they getting picked up, taken there safely? How do you choose who goes, and where do the rest go? Seems to be a pretty hot topic, so instead of 1 minute, you have 2 minutes each on this.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll start with candidate Whitburn.
All right. So how do we get unsheltered folks off the streets, essentially? Is that the question?
How do you propose to get unsheltered to beds? Are they getting picked up? Are they getting taken there safely? How do you choose who goes, and where do the rest go?
So I proposed and successfully got through the city council an ordinance that, as I mentioned earlier, prohibits encampments on public property when we have a safer place for people to go, like a shelter bed or a safe sleeping site. And it prohibits encampments regardless of shelter availability within 2 blocks of a school like Alice Burney. You absolutely, under those circumstances, under the rule that I passed, could have an encampment within this area around Alice Burney. You couldn't around Trolley Barn Park. You couldn't in the canyons because those are all sensitive areas. The way we approach that and the way that we enforce that is by a 3-step process. So there's a couple of different folks that will approach people experiencing homelessness. We have nonprofit folks who will work with them and try to encourage people to accept shelter and services. If they decline, then that's where the ordinance comes in, and our police force will first offer shelter. And if they decline, they can get a warning the first time. The second time, they'll be offered shelter. If they decline, they can get a misdemeanor citation. And the third time, they could get a custodial arrest. We have to enforce the ordinance. I simply disagree with my opponent who wants to make it voluntary. If you make it voluntary, if you give people the opportunity to have an encampment on your sidewalk because they want to, I'm sorry, I fear for the future of this neighborhood. We have to have an ordinance and we have to enforce it. That's what I've done. That's what I'll continue to do.
I want safe, sane, and voluntary shelters. I'm not saying people can go wherever they want and set up an encampment. I'm saying that the shelters the city provides should be safe, sane, and voluntary, not forced with the point of a gun. Now, we started with little 1,800 shelters when my opponent was elected, and we've lost 500 of those. So he's at a loss now, over 400 shelter beds. The shelter beds, about 50 of them come into play any day. From about 8 a.m. they open up, and at about noon they're full. Thousands of people in a 100-day period ask for shelter and are turned away. There are entire populations of people that can't even bother asking because there are no beds for them. There are no beds for caretaker couples. There are no safe beds for seniors. There are seniors are required to be on a bottom bunk, and most of the beds that open up on a daily basis are top bunks, so they're not eligible for them. There are a waiting list of 300 people. There are people that want options, safe, sane, and voluntary, and so it doesn't make any sense that we're paying police $28 million a year to force people into shelters when there are no beds. Now, the way this works, a police officer approaches, they have no idea if there's a bed for this person. They ask them if they want a bed, they make them destroy all their belongings except for 2 bags, they take them down to intake, and then intake tells them there's no bed for them. Next time they're asked, they understand, okay, this isn't really a bed, this officer doesn't know if there's a bed yet, so I'm not going to, accepting it doesn't make a difference, I'm going to hold on to my property. These folks are waiting 10 years for housing options. This isn't the first, second, fifth, or 20th time they've been offered. The folks that are running through the SAFE camp, only 80 of them, or 82 of them, got into permanent housing. 1,300 folks cycled in and out and didn't get housing, only 82. So these aren't getting people in. We need to get people into actual options and provide safe, sane, and voluntary shelters for folks so they're not on the street. Thank you.
Okay. This voter states, I'm going to read it direct because it's kind of exciting. They said, I am excited about the housing opportunities that come with Plan Hillcrest, but not excited about public transit options like a streetcar and a gondola not coming until 2050 at the earliest. What are your thoughts on public transit in a very dense District 3? We're going to start with candidate Cusack.
So, as I mentioned earlier, it's ridiculous that our buses stop at 9 p.m. The folks that need buses often work third shift, and so they need to work them through the night. And why don't we run them through the night? Because, homeless people might ride on them and sleep in them, so we're gonna make everything miserable for everyone else. We have bus lanes, like I said, that get cut off, and then they have to merge with cars, and that's not working. We have bus lines that aren't as fast as they could be. So we need to get the bus lanes working so that people get from one place to another place in a reasonable amount of time before we expect that transit's going to be serving all these communities, and we must do that forthwith.
My opponent has no idea what she's talking about. One thing that the MTS and our transit system does not do is discriminate against people experiencing homelessness. We have never reduced service because there's a concern about people experiencing homelessness. In fact, many of the people who use public transit are people who can't afford cars and have low incomes. What does restrict service is funding. Imagine that. We have done everything we can to expand routes, to expand frequency. The state of California, the vast majority of the funding for transit comes from the state and federal governments. Only a relatively small portion of public transit is funded by fares. So we rely on the state and federal governments to fund public transit, as do all municipalities. The state government is actually kicking in a significant amount of money, and we are planning to do overnight bus service between downtown and the border to make sure that overnight workers have public transit. So we're looking to expand service.
Okay, this is going to be the last question. The mayor proposed the no camping ordinance, and to counter that created 2 safe camping sites. Although preferred by some to be better, safer than on the street, what follow-up and oversight has been done to ensure substance use abuse is not allowed on these sites? Is there a plan to enhance the sites, and how do you rate their success? This kind of, I had like 7 cards on the same topic, so I think this gets it. And so we're going to start with you, candidate Whitburn.
My only quibble with that is that I'm the one who proposed the safe sleeping sites. I went to Denver, saw how well they worked there, talked to city officials, brought the idea back. We opened one. It was so successful. We've opened a second one. They are largely full. And I think at last count, over 1,300 people who had previously been living on the streets in encampments had come off the streets and were in the safe sleeping sites. It's such a better, more humane situation for them. Not only do they have a place to sleep, a tent that the city provides, they have bathrooms, they have showers, they have laundry, they have meals, they have connections to services. We have had people who have gone through that program, gone into an apartment, and come back to volunteer at the safe sleeping site because they were so grateful at what the city of San Diego had done to help them get back on their feet. It is a huge success. It is exactly what we need to continue to do. I hope we can open more of them. And many of the homeless activists are asking for more because they work.
Candidate Cusack.
More because there's not enough spaces and beds for folks. So 1,300 folks went through the Safe Camp. Only 80 ended up in permanent housing. And there's only 600 still there. So where did all the others go? They're back on the street. This is just a temporary place for people to spend while they wait 10 years. Now, I brought the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Adequate Housing out here to San Diego. I brought them in 2019 to inspect, and then I brought her successor in 2024. They went on this site, found human rights violations and a denial of dignity. offered to speak to Mr. Whitburn. To this day, Mr. Whitburn has not reached out to speak to him. The UN representative still remains available to speak. He won't speak to him. Those tents that they gave them are uninsulated fishing tents that don't have a bottom. They put them on wood platforms that they painted, but they didn't seal. So when it rained, they're now growing mold. And there's rats that are living in the foam that they put underneath. So it's unbelievable. For years, they could have just put a canopy over their eating area so that they could have some shade. How easy would that have been for them to do? And they still haven't done that.
Okay, before the closing remarks, I want to thank you for being an attentive audience. You respected the rules, which is a major score, and asked really good questions. To learn about the work that the League of Women Voters does, please visit our website, or you can ask any of us who've got League badges on. Our website is lwvsandiego.org. Some of you have got a 411 card. They're up there. This is a site that has a lot of information on what your ballot's going to be. You can actually type in your address, and it will bring up your ballot and talk about the candidates and all of the 10 state measures, 1 county measure, and 3 city measures that we have on this ballot. Okay, so really a great resource for you. So if you didn't get a bookmark, take one on your way out. So now we're going to do the closing statements. I would ask you to please hold your applause until both of them are done. They get 2 minutes, and we are going to start with candidate Whitburn.
Thank you again. I thought that my opponent's last answer was very telling. Here we have a program, the Safe Sleeping Sites, where you're getting people off the streets out of a very unsafe environment, and you're getting into them a much safer environment where they have laundry, bathrooms, services, they're being fed, they have connections to housing. It's objectively a better situation than an encampment on the sidewalk. Objectively a better situation, yet she is opposed to it. We've been here for an hour. I did not hear my opponent put forward a single proposal for what she would actually do to improve our city. At every step of the way, it's 101 Ash Street was bad. Well, we knew that. But if you're going to actually address the needs in University Heights, if you're actually going to make progress, if you're actually going to get things done on the city council, wringing your hands about the mistakes of the past isn't going to get it done. You've got to move on, you've got to learn from the past, and you've got to make progress. Homelessness is far and away the #1 issue that I hear from residents around District 3, including in University Heights. People in University Heights have no patience for encampments in the canyons, for encampments on the bridge, for encampments, I'm sure, in Trolley Barn Park would not go over well. That is why I passed the ordinance that prohibits encampments on public property. That is why I open alternative places for people to go. It is an untenable situation. We've got to solve it. Saying that it's voluntary is not going to get it done. And you can parse hairs about whether it's voluntary enforcement or voluntary shelter, but it amounts to the same thing. So thank you very much, everybody, for being here. I'm proud to be endorsed by our police, our firefighters, so many neighborhood organizations. I'd be grateful to have your support in this re-election as well.
Thank you for having me. This is a great opportunity to share information. It's impossible to get everything I could want to say in a minute or even 2 minutes out. So for that reason, I'm hosting a webinar on what a housing and human rights-based approach, what a human rights-based approach to housing and homelessness looks like. Because we've not tried that yet. We've tried not ignoring the problem, and then we've tried arresting the problem, and we've not applied a human rights-based approach. So on next Thursday, the 12th, at 5 o'clock, I'll be hosting a webinar. Leilani Farha, former United Nations Special Rapporteur on Adequate Housing, who's now working with municipalities all around the globe to prevent the over-financialization of their housing, to prevent people from Blackstone from dominating the market. She and I will talk about what this would actually look like, because it can't be answered in a single minute, and we will have you to answer your questions there. Now, the shelters are full, the safe camp that's not safe is full, the safe lots are full, and so we're not arresting our way out of the problem. The jail is full as well. So nobody is disappearing. The police aren't handing out housing. This ordinance isn't getting anywhere closer, and every study shows that criminalization makes homelessness worse. Chronic homelessness has doubled under this watch, and the homelessness every single day has been getting worse, despite what my opponent has told you. Every month there's been more people that are homeless than are getting housed. And so we need to be realistic about this. How are we going to fix this? And all we are given are these platitudes, and my opponent promised you 4 years ago that at the end of his term there would be very few people left unsheltered in San Diego, and within 4 years we will have largely ended this crisis as it exists today. He will say what it takes to get elected, and he can't be trusted.
Okay, on behalf of the University Heights Association, thank you, League of Women Voters San Diego, I want to thank the candidates for running for office and attending the forum tonight. You can applaud now. Thank you all for attending.